Hey, North Shore Pump, everybody's talking about the market cooling down, but if you look at the data for our local market, it's telling a different story. We're gonna break that down in your November 2025 North Shore Pump Hyper Local Housing Market Update. What is going on, party people? My name is Chris Elliott, local realtor, Wyndham resident, 550 plus home sales under my belt, all in Central Virginia since 2013. And in this video today, yes, today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down the national headlines, what you're seeing on the news about the housing market, what's true, what's not true, and then we're going to translate that or compare that to what's actually happening in our hyper local North Shore Pump market. And if you stay to the very end, that's where all the goodies are. We're going to give you 3 practical tips that we're currently giving to both our seller as well as our buyer clients. Let's jump into it. All right, so national news. We are seeing more active inventory, basically homes on the market. So active listings have been over 1 million for the last 5 straight months. This is the highest levels of inventory that we've seen since 2019, driving more price cuts and slower price growth nationally. Secondly, we're seeing bifurcated pricing, and yes, that is a word I had to look up. Thank you, AI, for making me sound smart. Roughly half of our top metros throughout the United States right now are continuing to see price appreciation, meaning prices are going up, whereas the other half are starting to see price declines, especially the high flyers that we saw during COVID, i.e. Austin, Texas, South Florida. Some of the hotter markets that really took off during that time have actually started to come down a little bit. So the net of all that is we are seeing appreciation continuing to grow nationally, just at slower and a more moderate pace. Let's talk about mortgage rates. So further reminder, if you've been watching our content, you know, you've been educated that the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, controls the federal funds rate, not the retail mortgage rate that you and I would see if we wanted to take out a loan. So even though Jerome has cut the federal funds rate, we've seen mortgage rates that have kind of stalled out. Currently, at the time of this recording, the 30-year par interest rate is 6.35. So we'll see if that continues to come down. We're currently experiencing elevated inflation. We're seeing job growth stalling out. So we kind of have 2 opposing forces. The Federal Reserve, friendly reminder, has a dual mandate to both achieve maximum employment and a steady level of inflation or controlled inflation. So lack of job growth, rather, eventually going to force them to continue cutting the federal funding rate, but we shall see. Where do interest rates go into 2026? You might be asking yourself, well, all the smarty pants people are continuing to call for interest rates to come down. There's a little bit of a discrepancy amongst themselves as to how low they're going to get, as you'll see in the graphic, but basically the collective wisdom is that we are going to see interest rates continue to tick down slowly, not massive rate cuts. We're not going back into the 3s anytime soon, but we are going to have a little bit of slight breeze at our back going into 2026, which we anticipate is going to bring both buyers and more sellers back into the market. Sellers willing to trade their low COVID interest rates in for a more moderate, let's call it 6% interest rate, and buyers jumping off the fence as affordability becomes a little bit better. And you might be saying to yourself, hey, Chris, that all sounds good, but I could have gotten that on the Googles. I want you to give me the local data. You're supposed to be the local guy, and I appreciate your patience. Let's jump into that right now. So here is the information for our hyper local North Shore Pump market, straight from the Central Virginia Multiple Listing Service. So this is raw data. Let's talk about availability and competition. So homes for sale, the amount of homes that are left on the market, that is up 25.6% year over year. So we had 49 homes left on the market at the end of September. That means more selection for buyers. In context though, we went from 39 homes left on the market to 49 homes. So yes, it's up 25.6%, but keep in mind we're dealing with a small data pool here. Month supply of inventory is at 1.8 month supply of inventory, which is up 28.6% year over year, which once again sounds dramatic, but keep in mind anything under 6 months supply of inventory is a technical seller's market. Anything below 3 months supply of inventory is a red hot seller's market. So still very much in a seller's market. And then median days on market for the month of September was 5 days. Yes, on average or on median, home sellers in North Shore Pump went under contract in just 5 days, which is actually down close to 70% from September of last year, but homes are still selling very, very quickly. Let's talk about demand. So new listings hit in the market was 39 in the month of September. That was up 44%. So sellers are showing up to the market, which is great. Pending sales, the homes going under contract, that was 30 for the month of September. That's actually up 66.7% month over month. but it's down 6.2% year over year. So essentially we're flat with last year, even though we had a nice run up from August to September. And then the amount of showings, depending basically how many showings does the seller have to accommodate before going under contract, was only 9 in the month of September. That's down 35.7% year over year. So we're seeing where sellers are having to tolerate less showings, which is always a plus for sellers. Let's talk about pricing and negotiation. And this one I'm going to go through slowly because I think it's very important to understand this. So our median sales price in the month of September was $562,500, which is down 30% year over year. Now, before you clutch your pearls, realize once again, we're dealing with a small data set. So you could have, just a handful of lower price sales in the area that can dramatically skew that median sales price. I would submit to you that's more of a case of dealing with a small data set. I don't think home values across North Shore Pump, have dropped 30% year over year. It's simply not what we're seeing. We're still seeing where sellers are getting on median 100% of their asking price. They're selling in 5 days. So obviously home prices are not going down in those conditions. This is an issue with just pulling from a small data set, if that makes sense. All right, so bottom line takeaway, inventory is up. Buyers have a bit more breathing room, but it's still very tight locally. The big median price drop looks mix driven. We've talked about that. It's certainly not a value crash, and home price to comps are selling in an average of 5 days at 100% of their asking price. All right, so now we're gonna close out, as we do always, giving you 3 practical tips if you're looking at buying and or selling. Let's jump into it. Tip number 1 for my sellers, now is not the time of year for experimental pricing. Somebody that says, hey, I want to list my home this November, but I wanna price it above market value, or I wanna try at this higher price, or I want to price it to leave room for negotiations. We don't necessarily recommend that this time of year, just because you run the risk of a smaller buyer pool and your home sitting on the market. Interesting enough, we recommend pricing at or below market value. And even though it doesn't follow conventional wisdom, the more exposure your property gets, typically the more it ultimately sells for. Tip number 2, if you put the work in ahead of time, you are going to reap the results later. So we are still in a market where the homes that are prepared properly for market, i.e. staging, repairs, we do the paint, we do the carpet, we change out the door hardware, those homes continue to sell for premium prices. The homes that are just slapped on the market with no preparation, yes, they are selling. Yes, they are selling quickly. They're simply not maximizing the market that we're in. So if you're somebody that wants to achieve a premium price, absolutely recommend putting the work in ahead of time. And then last but not least, it is never too early to start. So if you're saying, hey, Chris, all this sounds good, but I'm not making a move until 2026, I would encourage you to have a conversation with your real estate professional. If you don't have one, we would love to be that for you. But have a conversation now as to what, if anything, would be recommended to do to get my home ready for market. Leave yourself 3, 6, 9 months to do all those things, versus what most people do is call us and say, hey, I want to have the home in the market in 2 weeks. And then we can in 2 weeks, but there's only so much room that we have to work. So if you're somebody that wants to maximize your home sale in 2026, have that conversation now before the holidays. For my buyers, number 1, get in front of the price appreciation. So as we continue to see mortgage rates come down, we anticipate home prices are going to continue to rise. So if you're somebody that is looking for a home, assuming you could find something for you and your family, buy it now and get in front of the wave of appreciation. You can always refinance your mortgage rate down the road. You are not able to refinance the purchase price. Secondly, move with speed. As you're seeing, the median days on market in September was 5 days for our local market. So if you are after a home in this area, realize you're going to have to move quickly. You're going to have to move decisively. Just realize that is the tempo of our market. And then last but not least, if you're somebody that's looking for a deal, you're going to have to search homes that have been on the market for more than 2 weeks. Anything under that is susceptible to sell very, very quickly, to sell competitively. So if you're somebody that wants to negotiate a deal, you got to go after the older inventory. Well, guys, I hope you found value in that. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, fears we did not address in this video, shoot me a DM, throw it in the comments. If you know somebody who would find value from this video, share it with them. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next month.